Good afternoon and welcome to the 193rd episode of the Georgia Farm Bureau Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA state title. We're going to have a special show today. It is National Signing Day. We've got tons of news to break, and I'm going to be joined momentarily by Najeh Wilkins. We're going to look at the morning's biggest news, a lot of the signees from the state, what schools have sent out a sizable class, and we're also going to take a broad look at the current class of 2023 rankings across the college football landscape and within the conferences to see who has picked up the best incoming class. Before we get into it, though, I just want to stress when I'm looking at some of these names that are signing right now, how spot on Najee has been this season. Darius Cannon is going to Kentucky. He was a name that we knew he was involved in the passing game. Najee's on the sideline, and he calls his breakout performance against North Forsyth right before the half. And for him to go from no offers to Kentucky, that's just impressive. We put Najee on the sidelines, and it took one half for him to see what multiple colleges saw weeks later. So I'm excited for him to join me because a lot of these guys Najee has had on his radar all season long. But let me just go through some of the news before we get to Najee. Here's another name from that game, North Forsyth. That's Aiden Ruck, tight end. He is 100% committed to Furman, so that is a big signing for him. And North Forsyth, they have a lot of guys signing. Logan Curry as well. We'll get into that in a sec. I'm going to Rusty's Twitter real quick. I have 1 million tabs open. So Daniel Jolly, that's a receiver from Model High School, he is going to Shorter. So Shorter, they're having a busy day as well, and that's what we expected. In the early signing period, that's when a lot of the big Power 5 schools fill about 80 to 90% of their class, and then it's a really aggressive moment later for the schools like Shorter, Mercer, Reinhardt, West Georgia. They usually take advantage of this later signing period and get some really solid guys that have been waiting for that offer. Let's take a look at Mercer real quick. Cody Arnold, he's a punter from Glen Academy. He just signed. Let's see. Looks like Mercer hasn't had many updates yet. The Mays Raiders, they had their celebration for their 2023 signees just a few minutes ago. Let's look at that. We have Zyterio Lee. He was pivotal on their offensive line this season, two-time first-team All-Region, 6'4", 275 pounds, can play offensive guard, center. He is going to Alabama State. Great job for him. We also have Troy Pikes, another big player for Mays last year, 6'4", 290 defensive tackle. He is going to Georgia Southern. Also from Mays, there's Jeremiah. He's going to Carson Newman. He was a receiver and free safety athlete this year, has a 3.7. Let's see. Marion Anderson, 6'3", 275 defensive lineman. He is going to Navarro Community College to continue his playing career. Tristan Morgan, running back, receiver. He is going to Fort Valley State. And so it looks like Mays, in their celebration today, had 5 players signed to go on to the next level. So great job, Coach Slayton and the Raiders. Another team that just had a massive day today. I think they hit double digits. That's Peach County. DeCorian Stanley, he is going to Georgia Military College. You have DeLion Green, 6 foot, 230 defensive lineman. He's going to Gordon State. We'll have to look at Gordon State's class later. They've had a busy day. I've seen that. Also, Middle Tennessee State, they have just signed a haul from the Peach State, including Jadarius Morris, 6'2", 260-pound defensive lineman from Peach County. He is going to Middle Tennessee State. We have Jaden Parker, 6 foot, 170-pound safety, going to Wingate. Another Peach County player going to Gordon State, that's Caleb Hampton. He is a wide receiver. Northeast Mississippi Community College signee Chris McMillan. He is a running back, 5'9", and a solid 190. He's had a great career. And then offensive lineman Jose Perez, 6'3", 300 pounds. He is going to Wingate. I'm telling you, Peach County had a huge signing class. Let's see, Jalon Elamin. He's going to Edwards Water University. He is another lineman, 6'2", 260. Then Ole Miss got Skylar Mann. He is a 6'3", 220-pound linebacker. So right there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep. So outstanding job for Peach County, sending guys absolutely all over. Then we go down to Macon, Georgia, and Northside. Warner Robins had another big class. They had Quentin Lewis go to Yale. Kyle Mixon signed with Kentucky. And these are great schools right here. Mikael Roberts, University of West Georgia. R.J. Bellflower, Reinhardt. Brandon Wilson, Reinhardt. Tyler Williams, Union College. Duke McClinton, Peru State. Isaiah Harvey is going to UTC. And then DJ Hardy is going to Gordon State. So another Gordon State signing right there. Also in that middle Georgia area, the Rutland Hurricanes. We had Nico Sandifer sign with University of West Georgia. And then his teammate Keith Johnson also signed with West Georgia. So Rutland, they send 2 players to West Georgia. Callaway, their senior class had an incredible run. Won a state title 2 seasons ago, had multiple Final Four appearances. They won their 10th Regent Championship this past year. And let's see, Hatavius Leslie, he signed with Point. Blake Shep, he signed with Brevard College. And had a couple more. And yeah, Georgia Tech head coach Jason Seymour was on campus just 4 days ago recruiting their guys. So Callaway, once again, they're sending a lot of guys to the next level. All right, and then Wilcox County, they had a really great season. A lot of that was in part to their quarterback, Abe Stowe, and he just signed with Georgia Military College. And then I had mentioned Nico Sandifer. He is a 6'4", 190-pound wide receiver. Also played tight end this past year, and he, of course, is going to West Georgia. Then Howard High School, Xavier Hardy. He is going to go to East Mississippi. All right. Then I saw that Riverwood High School, they had a ceremony that involved all their various athletes. It wasn't just football. Looked like they had 5 signees right there. We have Evan Zapata. He's a 6'4", 260 offensive lineman from Mount Perrin. He just signed with Kaiser Football. Thomasville, they had 3 signees. Monmouth Perkins, Greensboro College. That's a D3 school. Evan Wynn, Clark Atlanta. That's D2. And then DJ Thurman, a name we're familiar with. He's going to Gordon State. So That's a guy that was huge for them when they made it to the state championship last year. They fell short in that game, I believe, to Brooks County, but DJ Thurman, a great player, tons of experience, giving Gordon State another absolute stud from the state of Georgia. Let's see. Okay, that's a Florida school. Let's look at how Houston County did. We'll stick to Middle Georgia real quick. So Arthur Lee Brown, 6 foot, 180-pound defense back. He's going to Charleston Southern. It's also his birthday today. Happy birthday, Arthur. And then, let's see. Yeah, so their ceremony is still ongoing. Obviously, the big news is their quarterback, Antoine Hill, is absolutely blowing up. He's one of the studs in that sophomore class. He's racking up the offers. So let's go back to Shorter. They're welcoming in Zamarian Starling from Westover High School. He's a big offensive lineman. Their head coach, Adam Miller, giving him a shout out, says that's an absolute steal for Shorter right there, getting a great player. And let's see. Marion Brown from Marietta, he's going to Wofford. I need to look into them. I know they're having a busy class too. No stranger to the state of Georgia. They're obviously based in South Carolina in Spartanburg. So let's look at their signees. Here we go. All right, so they got Kyrie Mapson, 6'5", 295-pound offensive lineman from Lithia Springs. Tyler Parker, 6'3", 200-pound receiver from Tift County. And as I mentioned, Amarian Brown, 6'3", 260 from Manchester. And that looks like all the Georgia guys so far. So their class is still building, but Wofford is definitely recruiting the state hard. And then Aiden Wilson, he was Buford's athlete. I think he was also a long snapper for Buford. Blake Ferguson, he's gone on to play in the NFL with the Dolphins. His older brother, Reed Ferguson, he was on the Bills this year. So Buford has really had a lot of success at breeding these outstanding long snappers that go on to have big impacts in college and then ultimately make it to the NFL. Not many schools can say that, but Aiden Wilson was considered one of the best long snappers in the country. He's a perfect 5-star Pearl long snapper. He also played other positions this last year, but obviously he'll focus on that. And he graduates as a 3-time state champion. Walton denied them that 4th, but an outstanding career. And so Aiden Wilson, he is going to Bowling Green to be a long snapper. And he had not made up his decision, hadn't made it official until today. So that was exciting for him. All right, and then Lanier County, Class A school, they had 2 signees. It's going to be Daniel Cruz. He's going to Arkansas Baptist, and then Jameer Glenn, he's going to play for Point University. And let's see what else the Skyhawks have been able to get. They tweeted out in November they were looking for quarterback, receiver, linebacker, and defensive line. They got Ryan Jenkins to fill, I believe, that tight end role, and then Brandon Washington from Ware County, state champion player right there. And then Loganville's Johnny Crow. Loganville had a really good season. At one point, they were undefeated. Uh, their defense was outstanding. Offensively, they struggled a little bit, but they definitely had one of their best seasons in a long time. He played quarterback for them, and he's going to point. So they'll bring in Johnny Crow from Loganville to fill that much-needed quarterback position. So that's exciting right there. But I'm going to go ahead, get ready to bring Najee on, read a couple more. David Mitchell. Oh, Javen Hall. What do we have here?
So he's going signed officially to Marshall.
To Marshall, right there. Okay, let's see. And what was he contemplating? Any other schools trying to pursue him?
Appalachian State.
Okay, so Javen Hall, key linebacker for Roswell this last year. Obviously, they had an outstanding run. Almost beat Gainesville in the semifinals. 6'1", 220. A three-star recruit. He's going to Marshall. So that's an exciting signing right there. And as Najee mentioned, he also had offers from Coastal Carolina, Houston, App State, Austin Peay. 23 total offers. And looks like, I want to see when he received that Marshall offer. Interesting. So he was committed to Houston as of December 15th, and that's when he decommitted. Trying to think, December 15th, that would have been probably 2 weeks after their season ended. So he reopened his recruitment, and then he also, in the summer before the season started, decommitted from Coastal Carolina. So he had kind of a long journey to finally land that signing from Marshall. They originally offered him on February 9th, so almost a year ago. So that's exciting. I'm going to look at the rest of this Marshall class real quick. So shout out to Najee for bringing up that breaking news.
Have more.
Oh, here's more. Let's do it. All right.
So boys.
Will Parton.
Yeah, from Milton. He signed with Lehigh.
Okay, Lehigh, Will Parton from Milton. So I think Milton has had a pretty big class. And those guys, I mean, that senior class, it was so huge for them this year, but really a lot of them didn't go in. They didn't have that typical 4-star or 5-star, but they're sending a lot of guys, product of their success. Colin Fletcher, another North Forsyth guy, and where is he going? Okay, Reinhardt. So, yeah, and Harlem Diamond from Cedartown, he picked up that late offer too, so that's great news. As you guys know, we broadcasted, I believe it was 33 or 34 games this year, so we got to see a lot of these guys. Saw North Forsyth play. They've just sent so many guys, including Logan Curry. Do another breakdown on him real quick. And Logan Curry, I mentioned it yesterday with Najee on the underrated and overlooked. He opened the season against North Atlanta with 10 catches, 106 yards. Had another big game against Shiloh where he had 5 catches, I think 130 yards, 3 touchdowns. And so he had a really strong season for them in that receiver role. And, yeah, he's going to Jacksonville State. So another North Forsyth guy right there. And I really like the Raiders' position in that 6A. Sort of the rest of Forsyth with West, Forsyth Central, those schools, they're up in 7A. North Forsyth in 6A. I think they can make some noise. It was a great year for them this past season. Had some big wins, lots to grow off of, and as you see, they've sent a lot of guys to the next level. Aiden Ruck, they're tied in. And then, where's their, let's see. One sec, I'm curious on this real quick. one more player I want to check specifically for North Forsyth because I know he had decommitted. And that's Colin Miller. Let's see where he ended up going. Okay, Colin Miller, 6'2", 225, was offered from Georgia State. Surely he's going somewhere. One sec. Okay, I think Najee's about ready to come on. All right, Najee, welcome on. I was looking
What's
at
going
this. We're
on?
talking about not much, but I was looking at North Forsyth. Have you heard anything on Colin Miller?
I don't believe I have. Let me scour real quick.
Okay. It says he was a Air Force commit still on his Twitter profile, so maybe he made that official today. I guess we'll keep looking, but that would just be one more from North Forsyth. But what else has kind of stood out to you just in this signing day period? I was talking about how this is where the smaller colleges, not in that Alabama, Georgia range, really have to go to work to secure their future. So, I mean, what have you just seen so far?
I think Middle Tennessee, the college has done really good. They've gotten a lot of Georgia players. One was Sakai Woods, obviously defensive lineman for Douglas County this past season. We saw how good he played. Um, Let me see. They landed another really good player as well. I saw. Hold on one sec.
Ethan Kright.
Ethan Craig. It's a bunch of players.
Yeah,
Let's see.
Jaquel Middlebrook from Hughes.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, they've done a great job. And I don't think they've even updated it, but you look at their class, they have 13 signees. 8 of them are from Georgia. So it's well over half.
Right.
Yeah, they're
Yeah. Well
crushing
over
it.
half. A lot of their talent coming from Georgia. So I mean, I thought they did good. If you talk about smaller school, that did a really good job. They did. I seen a lot of Georgia players going to short earlier. Quarterback from Meadow Creek, a couple other players as well. I thought they did really good. And then I thought Marshall, kind of same thing. They got a lot of players from Georgia. Will Pettit from Cambridge, and then Drew Pettit. They're both brothers. Will Pettit, I believe, was the receiver, and then Drew Pettit was the fullback. They both went to Marshall. So I thought that was interesting there. And then obviously, Joshua Barker, who we've seen a lot this season. He went to Benedict College. So major signing for them as well. Um, but yeah, as far as the smaller schools, those are the big standouts to me.
Yeah, 100%. That's interesting, though. Just back to Middle Tennessee for a state. Sorry for a sec. Looking at the schools represented from Georgia in this, we have Warner Robins player, Peach County, Douglas County, Hughes, Newton, Stevens County, and Roswell. So, I mean, if you're looking for Georgia talent, I think those are definitely on your destination list. But it's funny, though, that Hughes Douglas County game, we talked about it a lot last year because it was really interesting in that first half. But you have Shakai Woods, Douglas County, and now Jaquel Middlebrook are going to be teammates. So that's exciting for them.
Yeah, definitely is. And I know too, you went to hit on obviously the rankings too, as far as 247 Sports with the recruiting. Alabama's obviously number one right now. Georgia's number two. I thought, but some really interesting teams, obviously in the top 10. Florida, who hasn't really recruited the best lately, they're number 5 right now in the rankings. I'm curious to see their commits. They got 14 Florida commits and then 3 Georgia commits. Looks like. But yeah, top 5 class for them. They got TJ Searcy from Upson Lee, Aaron Gates from Trinity Christian, and then obviously Bryce Thornton from Milton. So I thought they did really good in this class as well. A school that's it's been kind of hard for them to get recruits in, obviously from Florida, but having a top 5 recruiting class, I think is it says a lot for them. And then obviously another team, I know you mentioned who's really won. I would say obviously Auburn as well. They've landed 7 Georgia recruits of their class. They're also a top 10 class. But Kayan Lee flipping him from
Right.
Ohio State to Auburn, that was big. They landed Deron Reed from Carver Columbus. That was huge. Terrence Love was already kind of committed there. He stayed the course there. Tyler Scott from Pebblebrook, cornerback, he landed there as well. Colton Hood from Eagles landed Christian. They landed him. Flipping Connor Lew from Miami, in the first signing day period to Auburn. That was a big move, I thought, as well. And then landing Stephen Johnson as well. So that's another top recruiting class, pretty much laden with Georgia prospects. So that's another one that stood out to me.
Absolutely. And sticking on Auburn for a second, Kayan Lee, I mean, he's ultimately going to be one of their highest recruits on this class. An outstanding cornerback from Cedar Grove. He saw it all this past season. He's going to be ready to roll. And then Terrence Love, that's a player that when you look at all the success Hughes had this year, there's so many different names. But, I mean, Terrence Love was a really good baller. And you look at his frame, 6'3", 195 pounds already at that safety role. I mean, I think that's a great opportunity for him at Auburn.
Exactly, and I'm pretty sure he'll be kind of thrust in there. He'll be able to get a little bit of playing time. It'll be interesting to see how he performs in obviously when he gets out there and on campus. But I think that's a move. Have pretty good guys in the secondary, bringing into obviously Terrence, as you mentioned, and Kayan Lee. I mean, it has that potential to be pretty great down the line. They're going to play that top tier football in the SEC. So I think that says a lot.
Absolutely, and that class also. It looks like a lot of these Georgia guys played defense. Steven Johnson from Whitewater. I was really impressed with what Whitewater did, and he's 6'4", 320-pound defensive lineman, number 130 player in the state. So another solid guy that will add depth for sure. And then I'm trying to see, okay, that guy's from Michigan. So let's look at Tennessee, though. What do you think about kind of what they needed to do with this recruiting class to keep that momentum going, compete with the likes of Georgia, Florida, Alabama, just any big names? I mean, we have Ethan Davis from Collins Hill. I think that's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, they're right in there. I mean, if you look at it, the top six, well, excuse me, I said six. Pretty much the top 10. Hold on, let me make sure I'm not mistaken. Hold on. I was going to say, yeah, the top two teams, obviously, Alabama and Georgia. I thought I had seen something where it says, but Tennessee has a top 8 recruiting class overall. So, obviously, they did a pretty good job in building that momentum. 7 were from Georgia, 7 from Tennessee, 3 from Alabama. Obviously, the Georgia recruits they got were huge. Ethan Davis, as you mentioned, the tight end, bringing in a guy from Denmark. Excuse me if I butcher his name, but Shomarov Omarov, that's going to be huge. He was a 4-star. Jalen Smith, we know he was committed there for a while. So they landed him. I thought the guy you mentioned was a sure tackler, was creating pressures against kind of Langston Hughes. Jeremiah Headlander from Gainesville. I mean, that's another big, I think, landing as well. And then obviously Jack Luttrell, a guy that he plays really good in coverage for Colquitt County this past season, and he lay it down too. So I thought good moves for them. They landed them, and a lot of Georgia players coming over to Tennessee. So I thought, having a top 8 class after the year you had last year definitely bodes well in what they're trying to build overall as a unit.
Yeah, that Shamarad Umarov from Denmark, that is a big guy.
Yeah,
he looks like he's playing center in the NBA. Looks like one of those overseas draft picks. Yeah, 6'5.5", 317. Still probably only 18 years old. He early enrolled. I think that's a big pickup for them too. And you look at Tennessee last year, they were, I think, 17th in the country, and now they're, as you mentioned, a top 10 recruiting class. I think a lot of that is just with the excitement that happened last year with some of their big wins, being ranked number 1, as brief as it was. I think that does make a difference.
Yeah, for sure. It does make a difference. It's going to help them a lot. The questions there, obviously, when we discuss more on our podcast, what steps is the quarterback going to take forward next year? Who's going to be the starter? Obviously, Hendon Hooker is going into the draft. So, who's going to take his spot going into the next season? And then, obviously, there's a lot of questions around the defense. Their offense can score with the best of them, having Jalen Hyatt, being able to run the ball really good, but they couldn't really stop people when it mattered most. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how much can they improve defensively to be able to help the offense, because obviously Josh Huppel there does a great job with the offense. I think it was number 2 ranked throughout the the college football season. So can they get those stops defensively? That's what really hurt them. So it'll be interesting to see how big the defensive line can step up. But I think the offensive line will continue to grow, obviously, with that pickup and the early enrolling in Umarov. So we're going to see how it all comes together.
Yeah, that's so true. You got to get the offensive and defensive line um, depth just building. I think there's no other place to do it than states like Georgia and Florida. Let's stay in the SEC, though. Another team that I think is in that similar position as Tennessee, that's LSU. And
Yeah.
one of the guys I want to ask you about, because you got to see him play, is Whit Weeks, the linebacker from Macomb County. They were great defensively. He's 6'2", 205. Where do you think he projects, though, just at the college level? I mean, he's a 4-star, number 12 linebacker in the country, really highly recruited, but, I mean, think he has a chance to make an impact defensively by the time his Tigers career is done?
Oh, for sure. I mean, go roll his tape against one of the top players coming into this upcoming class in 2024, which is Sammy Brown, who plays both sides of the ball, linebacker and running back. That game was basically him and his other senior linebacker, who, besides a 30-yard run from Sammy Brown, really nothing was really going offensively for them. Like it was a struggle all night long. Like he was filling the gaps, he was fitting the holes really good, and then when he came down in the box, he was hitting hard. And then he was pretty good in coverage as well. So, Oconee County, I forget how far they went in the playoffs. I think they went a couple rounds. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he's just going to be a great addition. He's going to be a guy that's going to learn the game even more. He's going to be, uber focused. And I think he's going to bring what stood out to me, too. He has sneaky good speed. Most people don't think that, but with weeks throughout the season, sneaky good speed. He's going to only improve that at LSU. And I think he's going to be, coached by some of the best coaches. And like I said, we talked about it yesterday on our podcast. What steps can LSU take forward next year in year 2 under Brian Kelly? They were very competitive. They're in the SEC title game over Bama. That's huge. Can they follow up that success, though, is going to be the key thing. Can they be consistent? So a guy like Whit Weeks, it'd be interesting to see how that, he won't be able to play spring game, but it'd be interesting to see how he comes in, how much playing time he'll get, how quick he can learn the playbook, and if they're going to use him in spells. Will he be starting off, will he be a special teams player, or will they allow him to play, some minutes? So that would be interesting. And they actually signed 4 players from Georgia. DJ Chester was another one, 2 offensive lineman guys, Paul Medinga from Buford, and then DJ Chester from Eagles Landing Christian. And then also they have Michael Doherty, the safety. So it'd be interesting to see how quickly he's able to play. But I think without a doubt, he should definitely be able to get some playing time before his career is over and have an impact.
Yeah, and I think he has a brother that might have gone to LSU too. Might be making that up. Hold up one sec. But yeah, 100% with Whit Weeks. There weren't many players more valuable to their team than he was this past year. I mean, they lose a lot of games without him making those clutch plays when the offense was struggling. I think he had a great game against Carver Columbus in the playoffs. The Jefferson game, you were right there watching his impact. So yeah, an absolutely key piece to them. And then this class also has Jeremiah Hughes from Bishop Gorman. We know how good that program is for sure. So that's definitely an interesting storyline to watch. Obviously, we're interested in what LSU is going to do this next season, year 2 under Coach Kelly, but this is a pretty solid class, as you mentioned, of just for the future. And let's see. Yeah, West Weeks, that's his brother. He was a linebacker at LSU. He transferred from Virginia. And so, yeah, his brother played at LSU. His dad played at the University of Georgia. So just a football family. We will definitely see what he's able to do. Let's go to these other conferences, unless there's anything else that's standing out to you just in the SEC.
Nope, that's it.
Okay, perfect. Let's go to – see, the Big Ten. Obviously, the SEC, they're going to recruit our state a lot more aggressively, just having that local area. But looking at Ohio State right now, they're signing Caden McDonald. I mean, that's a –
Yeah, and they already had Jelani Thurman too. So,
that's
right.
right.
You got 2 guys that can make an impact really instantly. If you think about it, on obviously the defensive line and obviously at the tight end position. He's kind of that that player. Ohio State's always had some pretty good tight ends, but he's that player. He's athletic. You get the ball out to him in space, he can make some plays. Jelani Thurman, obviously, seeing him
Hmm.
play a lot this season as well. So, be interesting to see again. For quarterbacks that are coming in and just starting, tight ends are usually the kind of safety blanket they try to use. So, obviously they're going to have other tight ends there, but interesting to see how quickly he can come to the fold and potentially even start. But yeah, two guys from Georgia for Ohio State. Be interesting to see how everything comes together. But they had a pretty good recruiting class as well. I think they were top 5 overall.
Yes, they were. And I think that's going to be really interesting. I totally believe Jelani Thurman's going to be making an impact there. He is 6'5", 230, already has the college-ready frame, and as you said, he's great in the open field, great running routes, had unbelievable hands. We know he'll be able to block too, was outstanding for Hughes multiple years, and he was breaking off 90-yard touchdowns. I mean, he has that speed as well. Number 3 tight end in the country, Jelani Thurman, really is going to be special, I think. That's a huge signing for Ohio State. And then Caden McDonald, an absolute beast on the defensive line, obviously played some offense too this last year. So I think that's 2 of the best players from the state right there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
you talk about landing some of the top players. I mean, that's what Ohio State just did. They would have had 3 with K and Lee, but he flipped as well. But he was a guy that was heavy in the recruiting as well.
Okay, so let's stick to the Big Ten. Ohio State's up there. What do you think about Michigan, though? Kind of what they're trying to focus on bringing in? Is it just overall depth? Is it those playmakers that have that special trait that they can try to take advantage of? Just how does Michigan sustain the success they had last year and then just try to keep building to become that premier team and get over that hump?
Yeah, they're going to have to keep, like you said, they're going to have to keep bringing in the playmakers. I thought J.D. McCarthy took a big step last year. He's going to be back another year. We had a guy that played in Georgia that went there, Benjamin Hall, running back. So they got some pretty good running backs. They got him, and then they got Cole Cabana from Dexter, Michigan. So, obviously they're probably not going to get a lot of playing time unless it's injuries, their first season, because they have Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. But after that, their sophomore season, I think you can see those guys getting a little bit more of a taste of the field, especially. But, yeah, it's going to come down to Michigan, obviously, getting speed, having some playmakers that can win deep down the field. And then defensively, it's just going to be, being able to have, those linebackers be able to make those plays, and then a defensive line that can create pressure. I think those things are going to be big going into next season. Got to really get some big defensive linemen that can, cause havoc and create pressures. As far as signing, they did get Amiric Kumba from, looks like France. Yeah. I say this. Pioneers, they Turan. Yeah, he's from France, but he's already enrolled. He's an edge rusher, so it'll be interesting to see what kind of impact he has. He's a big guy, 6'4", 230. He's a 3-star. And then they had some guys sign a letter of intent from Covenant Christian Academy in Texas. Enal Etta, 6'4 and a half, 260. They got him. So that'd be interesting to see how he plays. Roderick Pierce from Brother Rice out there in Illinois, 6'3", 290. Brooks Barr from Loyola Academy in Illinois, 6'6", 270. So it seems like they're getting a lot of big guys as far as on the defensive line. It'd be interesting to see how all that can come together.
Yeah, they got 7 transfers too. You were mentioning Illinois. At this point, they actually have leading all other states, 4 players from Illinois, 4 players from Michigan, 4 players from Ohio, and then second is Missouri and Georgia. What do you think about that, though? I mean, Illinois, they don't have any Georgia players signed that I know of at this point, but that's interesting, that contention between Illinois and Michigan. They seem to be crossing each other's borders. They played a really close game this last year. Illinois is up at the number 6 class in the Big Ten right now, so I think the Fighting Illini can get in the mix with the Penn States, Michigans, Ohio States.
It'll be interesting to see, how can they bring it together. As far as their record last year, let me find their record really
I
fast.
think they might have been 8 wins, 7 wins.
Let's see. Okay, yeah, they were not a bad record. They were 8-5 overall. They were 5-4 in the conference. So yeah, not too bad. Let's see, they had some good wins against Chattanooga. They lost to Indiana this past season. They beat Virginia. They beat Wisconsin. They beat Iowa, Minnesota. Let's see who they lost to. Lost to Michigan State. As you said, played Michigan really tough, 19-17 game. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be obviously, if they can get more kind of production out of their quarterback position. Obviously, Tommy DeVito, he's their starter, but, running the ball, this is more of a kind of a run-dominant team. Even in the game against Michigan, Chase Brown had 140 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. So they're kind of known for running the football. I think if they can get a quarterback in there that can, make an impact, kind of, help them out, it'll be interesting to see. They got a guy that's already enrolled, Kyle Swanson, looks like from Oklahoma. He's a 3-star, 6'3", 185. Might have to put a little bit of weight on, but interesting to see if he can, battle out for that QB position potentially.
Yeah.
But I mean, they have a lot of building blocks that can go off of. 8-5 and 5-4 in the conference is nothing to sleep at. So that's obviously, you're going in the right steps in the right direction. The key will be if they can continue, I think, to build that passing game.
Yeah, certainly a team I think can finish in the top 25. And all their losses last year, 3 points to Indiana, 8 points to Michigan State, 7 points to Purdue, 2 points to Michigan, and then they lost to Mississippi State in the bowl game. So all competitive games. I just thought that was interesting because I didn't really pay attention to them last year, but saw they were kind of up there in the Big Ten, and they were pretty close last year to finishing as a top 25 team. So watch out for Illinois. Let's go to the ACC, though. Look at kind of who's been leading that. A lot of conversation about what Tech's been doing. They've got a new athletic director, new head coach. Really seems like they're turning the page there. So what's sticking out to you just in the ACC right now?
Yeah, obviously the top 3, the Miami, Clemson, and Florida State, as we mentioned yesterday, those are the 3 teams we think are going to be something forced to be reckoned with. Obviously, Miami landed some major prospects, Raul Aguirre from in Georgia, and then obviously Joshua Horton. Clemson pretty much being Georgia-laden. A lot of their recruits coming from Georgia, 11 recruits from Georgia, and then 4 from Bama, and then 3 from South Carolina. We talked about this a couple of months ago. But yeah, I mean, these guys, they signed Vic Burley as a top player in the state. Stephylon Green from Rome, top player in the state. Jamal Anderson played on that state championship team. Mill Creek, Avion Terrell has been a stud throughout his tenure at Westlake. You have AJ Hoffler, edge rusher who's really good. From Woodward Academy, Khalil Barnes from North Coney, just dynamic with the ball in his hands, probably going to play corner or safety position. Mm-hmm. Robert Billings, another top safety in the state. So, I mean, obviously Clemson, I think it'll be interesting to see how quick some of those young guys can come in and play. But like I said yesterday, their big thing will be obviously the quarterback, what steps he can take forward. But I think they got a lot of speed and players that can play the position really good. And then obviously Florida State is number 2. Not a lot of places. They didn't get a lot of players from other places. They kind of focused on Florida. So, again, it'd be interesting to see, how all these players can come together. They got one player from Georgia, and that was DeMarco Ward from Duluth as a linebacker. So, it'd be interesting to see. But Georgia Tech didn't really get they were kind of down below number 12 they put them. But I thought they did good as far as in-the-state recruiting, which they got a lot of the recruits. 14 of the recruits came from Georgia. But I thought they got some kind of underlooked talent, guys that, aren't talked about a lot, but guys that can really play. And when they get the ball in their hands, they're dangerous.
Yeah, so you were talking about Clemson and their quarterback situation. Is that good? Yeah, you're going to have to clue me in. Is that Paul Tyson, that guy that transferred in? Or who do they have?
I believe it was Carson Beck, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
That was their starter. He kind of took the job from DJ Ugale, who just transferred to Oregon State.
Gotcha.
But I think we might be right on the transfer for sure.
Yeah, and then when you were mentioning the guys from Clemson, I mean, in this class of 2023, they got 3 of our top 10 recruits in the state, and I think 5 of our top 24. So these were big-time names. Vic Burley, what an absolute beast. Number 3 player in the state. Number 9 defensive lineman in the country. Stephylon Green, total beast, 6'4", 270 from Rome. I really like their defensive pieces. And I think Khalil Barnes might end up surprising people with the impact he is. We saw how tough he was playing both sides of the ball for North Dakota, but I think he's a really athletic guy that you put him in that secondary, he's going to make some special plays, and he's 6'1", 185. He's not a small guy, so really excited what Clemson has going for him. And then you're talking about Georgia Tech a little bit. What do you expect to see from them this year, just as they try to build all this excitement? I mentioned their new athletic director. He comes over from Alabama. He was really successful there, obviously, but I think this year's just going to be about generating the excitement.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big thing. Generating the excitement, putting your best players on the field. Obviously, building on that and, seeing who's going to really start, what kind of offense they're going to run. They're kind of known predominantly as the kind of option offense, running the ball, having a kind of that, three running or two or three running backs in the backfield. What kind of offensive game plan will they run? That kind of, you can make the argument that might be a little bit ancient now. So it'd be interesting to see, what they run. But they got like 4 players in the receiving corps from Georgia. Bryce Dobson, Bailey Stockton, Chris Elko. They got a bunch of players, from the state of Georgia in their receiving corps. So, that'll be interesting. But, I mean, there's nothing to sneeze at. Last year they battled Georgia pretty good in that game they played them in the first half, made it tough for them. Georgia ended up pulling away. But I think you're just going to see a team that's going to be competing, regardless of the result. Might not be, an upper echelon record. But, I think it's going to be a team that competes.
For sure. And then where did we say Keywan Brown was ending up going from South Atlanta? Louisville, that's right.
Louisville. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I wanted to give a quick shout-out to South Atlanta. I know they had a great recruiting class as well. I saw Bryce Bowen signed. So we'll check in on that for sure. And once again, we'll have all these entered in. You can go to scoreatl.com or the AJC. We have a statewide database. You can check in on the conference. You can check in on the county, by high school, all that. So we'll be able to update you there. We'll get all that theirs in, but I know their ceremony, I believe, starts at 1 o'clock. And Tay Seymour, their linebacker, great player, he's going to Georgia Tech. So that'll be a short trip for him from South Atlanta to Georgia Tech. That's awesome.
Yeah, it won't be too far. And that's my bad. It was K. Klubnik. It was their quarterback. So for Clemson. So that's my bad. I kept saying Carson.
Well, yeah, I had no idea. I just saw, at the bottom, they got some transfer from Arizona State. And then apparently Arizona State just got this absolute stud signed there. I think he was number 6 quarterback in the country. Their 11th highest rated recruit in school history. So Arizona State, they're kind of making moves at that quarterback position as well. Let's see real quick, though. Anything else in the ACC? Just what your take is on Florida State and Miami, kind of who's going to come out on top as that premier Florida school, what Clemson has to prove this year, UNC, and then just the new format they're doing with the schedule.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, not having divisions, switching it up basically. Like 1 year, if Clemson plays Florida State, Clemson will host. The following year, it'll be at Florida State. So, I love that. And then obviously real quick on UNC, they landed a bunch of players from Georgia. Aiden Duckinson, safety from Whitefield Academy. Robert Grisby from North Cobb, a lineman. Ty Adams from Swainsboro, who played in the state championship game, cornerback. Caleb Coss from Sandy Creek. Caleb Lavelle from Whitefield Academy, and then Jordan Louis, running back from Meadow Creek. So they landed a bunch of players from Georgia. But, yeah, I think just looking at the scope of everything, I think the top 2 is going to be obviously Clemson and Florida State. Can Miami take another step forward under year 2 under Mario Cristobal? Is going to be a good kind of gauge to see. They had 2 5-stars in this class and 15 4-stars. So be interesting to see, what steps they could take forward. And then UNC, obviously, they're always competing, and in there they was in the ACC championship game. So it'll be interesting to see if they can repeat that success, obviously. But I think that'll be really interesting, that top 3 right there.
Yeah, and we've talked defensive guys, we've talked all tons of positions, but I want to talk about the tackle position and a guy that's going to go to Georgia that we saw play. That's Bo Hughley from Hughes. 6'7", 290, just a unbelievable force blocking on that line of scrimmage. I think Bo Hughley might end up being one of the most successful guys to come out of this class of 2023. What do you think of him, just what you saw at the high school level, his physical presence, and then just how huge of a sign that is for the Bulldogs?
Yeah, it's huge. They've been racking up the signings, and I think he's a guy that's athletic. You wouldn't think 6'7", 290 is athletic, but he is. He moves well with his feet, has really good footwork. Once he gets his hands on you, it's hard to get around him, hard to get him off you. So yeah, I think it's just going to add more. Georgia's out, known for kind of their running the football and building off play action, obviously taking their deep shots. But I think he's a guy that's going to really make a difference for them. We'd be curious to see how quickly he'll be starting for them. Will that be a couple years down the line? Will it be, in his freshman and sophomore seasons? All that stuff will be intriguing to see. But that's a great pickup on the offensive line at your tackle spot to protect your quarterback. So, it's a home run hit for them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think he's going to get into that starting role pretty soon. And then also with Georgia, I mean, we all saw how good Brock Bowers was this year for them at tight end. They're bringing in two interesting tight ends, though. Lawson Lucky from Norcross, saw him play just from the start this season, just huge playmaker. And then Pierce Spurlin. So Pierce used to play receiver at Walton High School. He transferred to South Walton in Florida, became a tight end, kind of filled out his frame, 6'6", 240. He played in our Georgia Elite game. He was outstanding. But what do you think about Georgia trying to fill in that prototype and get the next Brock Bowers, and how kind of Lawson Lucky mirrors his style of play?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely a guy that, you get the ball to, good red zone target, a guy that can catch the ball in space and make different plays. It'd be interesting to see, what kind of they'll run as far as their tight ends. Obviously, Brock Bowers is going to be the starter. Will they run more two tight end or three tight end sets? That'll be interesting to see this year. And then who was going to be their tight end too, because obviously they lost Darnell Washington, who's in the draft. But it's going to be interesting to see because even Washington wasn't as big as Brock Bowers. Like, Brock Bowers is established. He's going to be the set on tight end unless barring injury. So it'll be interesting to see who the tight end two is going to be, and if they use him in a similar fashion, as they use Washington kind of blocking. They did let him, go out and run routes as well, but it'd be interesting to see how they, disguise and use them. Also, look, I think it's a great frame, great athlete, really good in the red zone, and, a guy that can block, and he can also hurt you running routes down the field as well.
Yeah, it's a great class for Georgia with tight ends. We mentioned Ethan Davis, number 7 tight end in the country, going to Tennessee. Lawson Lucky, number 8, going to Georgia. Jelani Thurman, number 3, going to Ohio State. And then I didn't even realize this. Pierce Sporlin, the former Walton receivers, ranked the number 2 tight end in the country right now. It's hard to believe that he's higher ranked than Jelani Thurman, but if he's ranked that high, I mean, Georgia's getting 2 really good tight ends with Pierce Spurlin and Lawson Lucky. So watch out for that. I think they're solid at that position for many years to come for sure. Let's see. Any other just thoughts on what you've seen so far with the team rankings? What you've seen with the statewide school or in-state schools like West Georgia? You mentioned Reinhardt, Georgia Southern, Georgia Tech. Just overall kind of who's been on the rise and what this competition looks for the Peach State.
Yeah, like I said, I think it'll be interesting. Another kind of conference we don't talk about a lot is obviously Sun Belt. Arkansas State's leading right now in that kind of conference. Georgia Southern and State are top 10. But it'll be interesting to see. Like I said earlier, Marshall did really good, landing some good prospects from Georgia. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see who comes out the Sun Belt this year. Coastal Carolina has been one of those kind of staples, playing really good and really well, landing people, obviously. So A couple guys went to Georgia State, about 5 players they got from State. Bryson Harrison, quarterback from Lassiter, Quinn Thomas from Eagles Landing, Charlie Pace from Colquitt County, running back, Cam Marshall from Perry, and then obviously Isaac Cohn from can't remember where he's from. But yeah,
Decatur.
so I
Yeah.
think it'll be Decatur, thanks. But yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see who comes out of the Sun Belt. We've seen the last couple of years, there's been some really good upsets. Georgia Southern had a big upset this past season. I can't remember who they defeated, but it was a team that's pretty known in college football. So we've seen this conference, and I only bring it up because conference have big upsets early in the season. We saw Marshall last year upset in Notre Dame. That's
That's
huge.
right.
So yeah, just the things to
App
think
State.
about. App State, yeah, App State they beat Texas A&M, right? Am I mistaken?
Yeah.
I think it was Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Huge
I mean,
upsets from the Sun Belt last year.
yeah. So I mean, that's a conference. Obviously, I'm gonna keep my eye on and see what happens. And obviously, we didn't talk about it a lot, but the Pac-12. Real quick, I think it'll be interesting to see how that's going to shape out. Oregon obviously has the #1 class. I think they were top 10, believe overall. And, USC's there. But Colorado was only at 5, but they landed some, players from Georgia. Only 2 players from Georgia, but they really landed it with the transfer portal. So again, it'll be interesting to see how everything shapes out in the Pac-12. I think it's going to be the most interesting year in the Pac-12 in a long time. And then obviously you mentioned the guy, the 4-star quarterback, landing with Arizona State. One of their top prospects probably ever.
100%. And they have 23 transfers going to Colorado from 16 different colleges. Their current class with 18 signees, only 1 player from Colorado. I mean, they're pulling from all over the country. And then you mentioned Oregon. You're 100% right. That's going to be a great conference to watch. Let's go back real quick, though, I want to ask you about this Georgia Southern signee, DeAndre Buchanan from Carver, Atlanta. I think that's a really exciting fit for him. He was an absolute playmaker for the Panthers all those years, a true stud. He's one of the highest rated recruits coming in. So you're talking about the battle for the Sun Belt. I mean, I think DeAndre Buchanan, he's going to make some noise with the Eagles.
Yeah, coaches went against him, and he said, always the odds were, I think he wore number 7. Odds go to him. He's a hard player to stop. So that was a good signing for them. I don't even think originally he was going to go to Georgia Southern. I think
Yeah.
he flipped, I think, last minute. He was supposed to go to another school. But, yeah, a big signing for them. He's going to add a lot of dynamic ability to the receiving corps. You can use him in punt returns, kick returns, and things like that. He's just going to bring a lot of speed to Georgia Southern, and they're going to be able to, throw the ball deep with him. He can take different routes, hitch, slants, curls, and, take it to the house. So I think he's going to be a big impact for them, probably one of their better signings in the state. Definitely going to help them out in the Sun Belt, sure.
And then we got to mention another Georgia Southern signee, and that is Walton's own Aiden Jackson. I think that's exciting. He had a big year. I mean, I said no one won Player of the Year more times than him. Yeah, they had a ton of televised games, but he showed up in big moments, just absolutely balled out this last year for the Raiders.
Yeah, playing through injuries,
Yep.
throughout the season, doing kick returns, playing both sides of the ball, receiver and corner. He was big on our TV games whenever he played. He got hurt in the North Paulding game, unfortunately, but first game of the year, he was big. He was big when they played Marietta, taking, guarding against the #1 receiver on their team and Christian Mathis. So he always took the challenge, I thought. And I thought that was a good pickup for them as well. He gets to play D1 football. Obviously, I think he'll just be a corner there. But they're getting a guy that has some good length, good speed, and, I think he's going to really, help out their secondary as well. So another good signing for them. But, yeah, a guy that just balled out all year long for Walton.
That's a great point because, yeah, we saw him make a lot of plays offensively, but, yeah, he will project in that secondary, and I think he is a really talented player at that side of the ball. So that's interesting. And then one more, because I want to stick to the Sun Belt, Takari Lipscomb going from Carrollton to Arkansas State. He had a great season. I think he's a receiver, just does everything right, runs great routes, gets open, can really make plays. So where do you think Lipscomb's going to be just in a couple of years? competing in the Sun Belt at Arkansas State?
Yeah, I think he'll be one of those guys that'll just get the job done. He's going to be one of those sure catchers. I think he's going to continue to elevate his game. I think he's going to be huge for them. He has good speed, like you said, runs a good route. So they have the number one class for a reason. Arkansas State does. So I think he's just going to continue to add to their receiving groups and what they want to do. This year he was big for Carrollton all year long, along with Caleb Odom. So big pickup for them. I think he'll continue to add to their offense.
Yep, in Carrollton, one of the themes we talked about is just all these two-sport athletes. Carrollton is obviously known for their track stars. Takari Lipscomb was a great track athlete too, so he does bring that elite track speed to the table. So, yeah, I think my takeaways, Pac-12 is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Watch out for the Sun Belt. These are not only teams that are going to be battling for the conference title, but I mean, they play in some big games. They're known to get these upsets, and there are just Georgia players strewn throughout the conference. So it'll be really exciting. But Najeh, I know we are going to be busy getting these entries put in, but what do you want to preview just for the show tomorrow, just what you have going on the rest of the week?
Yeah, not too much. I'm probably not going to have a guest on tomorrow. It's probably just going to be me. Obviously, I'm going to be talking about a lot of things. First and foremost, the signing, obviously, in the retiring of Crystal Henderson and Scoot Henderson, who's projected to be a top 2 NBA draft pick. So definitely going to mention that on the show. That's one of my main things for basketball. Obviously, the big win for Peachtree Ridge against Norcross on the road. That was huge. I'll get into obviously some football, just talking about, some of the things you talked about today, major recruit signings and things like that stood out to me. And then I'll get into some soccer, major news for Norfolk Coney, their freshman. I think her name's Olivia Maddox. She hit her first goal in her career there, and they won 2-0 the other night. So obviously I'll be mentioning some soccer that's under the way as well. So those will be my main topics for tomorrow that I'll hit on in about an hour of action. So.
Awesome. Well, we're looking forward to that. And so that ceremony for the Hendersons, that was yesterday, right?
Yep.
Yeah, really special. The Henderson family has done a great job with that Kell basketball program. And watch out, I think the boys just took over number 1 after Eagles Landing suffered the first loss of the season. And we know how good the girls are this year. So Kell's been outstanding in basketball. Obviously, they had a good football season as well. So check out Keeping It Real with Najeh Wilkins tomorrow. We're going to sign off shortly. Thank you so much for coming on, Najeh.
Yes, sir.
Yep. All right. So great stuff. Go to scoreatl.com. We'll have that database statewide updated as quickly as possible, getting in some of these smaller colleges, filling out the different classes. We already have all the early signees in there, so we just need to add to it by tomorrow. It should be hopefully close in on the 1,000s, but we'll see. We'll have to get busy. But thank you so much for joining us. Congratulations to all the signees, not just in football, but the other sports as well. A great job. Can't wait to see what the class of 2023 does, and we'll be back tomorrow.